My name is Keown, and my title is Race to Finish. Can't really kind of see it very well. Alright, I'm just going to start with my hypothesis. What I decided to test was I wanted to see the ultimate paper airplane and how far it could shoot. And so I picked 5 different paper airplanes and I shot them 10 times a piece to see which one would fly the furthest. So my hypothesis for this experiment is that my null hypothesis for this experiment would be that there would be no difference between the type of paper airplane that I shot and the distance that it traveled. Therefore, my alternative hypothesis would be that there would be a difference between the type of paper airplane that I threw and the distance that it traveled. So, with this procedure, I actually had no background with folding paper airplanes. So I kind of asked around a bunch of guys and asked them what they wanted to do, but then or what kind of paper airplanes they flew, and I kind of got a lot of different paper airplanes. So I was kind of trying to make it as less biased as I possibly could, and I kind of wanted to see if there were general paper airplanes out there that everyone flew. So I got on the internet and started Googling, and I fell in love with this man named Alex. And Alex has a whole website on paper airplanes, and he surveys people to see what the top paper airplane was, or the best airplane, or the paper airplane that is for long distances, or for airtime, or I mean just anything your heart could possibly imagine. Alex and I decided to choose 5 of his top paper airplanes as far as it comes to distance. So that's what I did. I also took in consideration, there was a lot of paper airplanes that you could use that they would cut the paper, so it wasn't a product of just one sheet of regular size paper. And I didn't want to do that because I thought that would kind of be a different variable with my type of paper airplane that I was throwing. I also did not use any glue, tape, paper clip, anything to hold them together. It was just folds. So I kind of wanted to make it as different but as similar as possible so that my results wouldn't be any different. So my first one is the trapezium, and I hope my video works because it worked. It's not going to, is it? I promise it worked this morning. But anyway, this is the trapezium.
Try to move your mouse wheel and the cursor will show up.
Okay, what now?
Click on that.
What?
Try to right click it.
Anyone? Nothing? Nothing? Okay. Okay. So this is my trapezium. It is very wide. It was the widest of my ones that I used. And it also has a very low base. In my videos, I just showed them. I was going to show you how I made them, but it took me like 10 minutes to build these airplanes. Seriously, I had to stop, pause, play, pause, play. So even if I condensed that, it would still take about 3 minutes of me folding this airplane really super fast, and I mean, you all probably wouldn't enjoy that. So I just decided that I was going to describe them kind of and give you a good background to show you the differences between them. But as you can tell, this one's really wide, and in the bottom, it has a triangle base to it. So when I shot it, I had to shoot it from the very bottom. And this one is called the rapier, and it's very narrow and it's long. And the tip of it is not very heavy. It's very thin. It's very level throughout. Like there's not a bulky spot in it, like the trapezium underneath. So that's kind of that one. This one's the dragon. As you can see, it's a little bit wider than the rapier, but it's kind of the same format as far as the wings expanding at the end. That says RAR on it. Kind of got to spice things up when you start flying paper airplanes. This one's the saber tooth, and it's not as wide as a trapezium because the pieces up here are a little thicker, but it's a little bit wider than the rapier or the dragon. And that's kind of what that one looks like. That one was the easiest one, thank goodness, to build. I actually could build that one in like 5 minutes, so I was very proud of myself. And the last one was the cobra. And this one reminded me more of just a regular, your plain old, plain Jane paper airplane that you would toss. And it kind of just looks, I don't know, this is kind of like I would think of an original airplane. I'm kind of bummed that these don't work. Okay. So, I went outside and I waited for the wind to die down. and I started shooting them. And what I did was I drew a finish line, or a start line, and I drug out measuring tape, and I just stood here and I did not move my legs or anything, and I just shot them. And I tried to be as consistent as I could. The first 2 or 3 attempts of the paper airplane, just at the very beginning, were duds. You kind of have to, it's not in the wrist like everybody says it is, kind of more in the arm. So as you can kind of tell, there wasn't a big difference between the rapier and the saber tooth. And those were the ones that were kind of, well actually they had different shapes. They have a lot of different shapes. This one's a little wider. It's one of the wider ones than this one. And that kind of surprised me a little bit. And then there wasn't that big of a difference between the dragon and the cobra, and they were pretty similar when it came to the shapes of them. So I kind of found these, I was like, these results are kind of interesting to me. So I did my test, I did a t-test. This is just just with the standard deviations of the combinations of all the means of their distance. So the standard deviation was 0.9 meters. And that's what I measured in meters. I don't know if I said that or not. And so you can kind of tell that the rapier was the fastest and that the dragon was the slowest. Rawr. So this is what I got when I got my t-test results. And what I could tell was that these 3, when I did them, the trapezium, the rapier, and the saber tooth, when those were compared to the dragon and the cobra, there was a significant difference between the two. So I could say that those distances were significantly different, that these were faster than these 2. But when I ran my t-test, I had to, compare each to one against one. So like the saber tooth against the rapier, the saber tooth against the trapezium. And when I did that, there wasn't a significant difference between these 3. So when I started looking at all this and I'm like, what does this mean? I kind of got these comparisons between, these are the ones that I could accept the null hypothesis, which means there was no difference, which means that the flights and the distances that they went were not significant, and so there wasn't a best paper airplane, which was kind of a bummer because I was really hoping that there'd be one, outstanding paper airplane. And that these failed to reject the null hypothesis, so there was a big difference. And you can tell that each one of these 3 were comparisons to the dragon and the cobra. And that's when you saw your differences, was between the paper airplane and the dragon and the paper airplane and the cobra. So, what I could tell was that when you want to fly a paper airplane in class, you don't need to choose the dragon or the cobra, which now you can kind of tell the differences in the size or the similarities in the size. But you want to choose the trapezium, the saber tooth, or the rapier. And so those are the good ones. And that's my conclusions to this. Do you have any questions?
Okay, could you back up a couple slides? I was very confused by your 2 slides of null hypothesis. Right, this one, you say you accept the null hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean that there was no statistical difference between these?
I need to swap those, don't I?
If those were the ones that have no statistical difference, then that
yes,
failed to reject the null hypothesis.
I need to swap those, you're correct.
And the other one, and then, so this one, there was
those are,
statistical
so
difference.
these, so I did.
So you rejected the null hypothesis.
I rejected the null hypothesis.
Okay.
So I need to, I'm sorry, I apologize. I need to flip those. You are correct. Yes.
Can you go back to your chart of your data?
Yes.
This one? Go back one more. The dragon and the cobra, are those columns purposefully the same?
Exactly the same. Oh my goodness, no, they're not supposed to be. My data, which I actually have, is not the same, and I can show you that.
I can see that by the graph, but I was just I was confused, those are.
I wonder if that was a copying and pasting error that I did not catch. Huh. You can tell that those are not the same. Sorry about that.
Just one comment about your data there. One thing you need to keep in mind is significant figures, significant digits, and especially when you use Excel. Obviously, when you have something like 5.30, it's just going to say 5.3
Yes.
unless you change the format. So make sure when you're using Excel that you format those cells to say always be 2 decimal places so that all of your data looks the same. And then the same thing, and I think you know this from science anyway, that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a 3-place decimal as an average when all of your data has been 2-place decimal. So by using that formatting, you can keep everything in the same order. Now, the only issue that I had with your discussion, and I think you just had an unfortunate choice of words. You said a couple of times something about the rate or how fast the plane was, and I don't think you ever dealt with that. What did you mean to say?
Just the distance.
Okay.
The distance.
Because this was all about distance, and
Yes.
you just somehow got out there about the rate. I think the word used was the rate of the plane. It had nothing to do with the rate.
Yeah. I was actually going to try to test the time of it. I was thinking about doing that, but there would be they were like significantly the same that it was really hard to that would have been really hard to toss and time at the same time.
Pretty disappointed that you decided to throw away my design, which would have clearly blown all 5 of those out of the
Well,
water.
yours, I couldn't be biased, but yours was a lot like the trapezium because it had the same base, the triangle base, you know what I'm talking about, where you tuck the flaps in, but it's a little bit wider. Yours, I think you folded it a little bit to make it more narrow. So I actually did think of you when I actually did the trapezium for the 3rd time.
So how well do you think it would have compared?
I don't know. We'd have to try it. I mean, I had my paper airplanes at home, so we could have a contest if you so wish.
It would be
Your heart's
fine.
desires. We can do it. Yeah.
Do you think this will work better in like if you threw them in a gym or something?
I think it would have, but the thing that that honestly, the significance of the wind was nothing when I did this. Like I did this Monday and I did not have a problem with it just every so often, and I was up in between 2 buildings. I tried to eliminate as much wind as possible. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that the wind was not a factor, but it wasn't a significant factor. I don't feel like it was.